Welcome to Big Hide channel. So today we have a special guest I'm sure you all have been waiting for. The first ever Arnold Classic champion, three-time first runner-up Mr. Olympia, IFBB Professional League Hall of Famer, and Gaspari Nutrition founder, one and only Rich Gaspari. Welcome, Rich. Thank you for.
It's great to be here, Hide.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me as a guest.
We appreciate. I'm sure all the Japanese beer been waiting for you. So I have a lot of questions from them, and actually we just we did catch up last week a little bit, but let's tell Japanese viewer what you are up to, especially because I'm sure not a lot of Japanese don't know you just got the newborn baby boy.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So how is it?
Well, everything is amazing. It's funny, sometimes through adversity you're able to rise, and during this pandemic, I really wanted to figure out a way to grow Gaspari Nutrition and to grow my company. And a lot of people during these times are very afraid and scared, and they give up. And I said to myself, I'm going to work harder during this period. And as you know, because you're part of Team Gaspari, we came up with 6 new products during the pandemic. We came up with 2 new flavors of egg protein. We came up with proven immunity. We came up with greens and reds. We came up with elderberry, vitamin C, and we just launched a very successful launch with a new fat burner detonate, and it's doing unbelievable. So, I'm doing great. My son is going to be 1 year old, August 10th. And I put on Instagram that he already knows my name and he recognizes my picture to say Dada. So it's a very good feeling.
Wow. So, you've been up, like releasing new product like, never before. And it's obviously, Body Cafe is crazy about especially like Plasma Jet and Detonate. It's already crazy. So I would say, the Gaspari Nutrition is the most famous American supplements company in Japan right now. So most of the Japanese, especially young age, they know you about, as a, founder of Gaspari Nutrition. Gaspari, okay, Rich Gaspari, Gaspari Nutrition. But, my age, of course, you're, like a bodybuilder. We've known you as a bodybuilder. So I want to, introduce you as a, like a top bodybuilder. So how did you actually start competing and when?
Well, I believe it or not, I started competing at only 14 years old. When I first started, I was very, very skinny, and I was the type of person that wasn't really good in sports. So bodybuilding is a very individual sport because you don't need to be, in a sport you have to work with others and be good at, I don't know, say kicking a ball or, baseball or football. So I was able to excel in training because it was very much something I could do on my own. So I started training when I was like 13, and my first competition, believe it or not, was 15. And I went into a local show, and I didn't even place. I placed like 10th, but I did love it, and I wanted to continue on. So I kept improving my physique. And by 18 years old, I started winning all the local shows, in the Northeast. I live in New Jersey. So in the New Jersey area, I started winning the Mr. New Jersey, the Teenage Mr. New Jersey, all these different shows. And then went all the way up to the national level as a teenager. At 19, I was going to compete in the Teenage Nationals, but a person named Lou Zwick, who is a person that had his own organization for another show, I went into what was called the America's Cup. And I went into that show. and I went up against a really big, now I can't think of his name, but maybe Hide, you can help me come up with his name. He's he never really competed, and he turned pro through winning a show in Africa.
Victor Richards.
Victor Richards. So Victor Richards was in a show, in this teenage show against me. Now, even back then, he was like 230-pound teenager, but he wasn't cut. So I went into the teenage show. I was 185, but I was ripped. And I beat Victor Richards, and he was so upset that I beat him because he already had 20-inch arms. I was much smaller, but I was in better condition. So he goes, "How can you beat me?" I said, you know, and I was very, I was very blunt. I said, "You're fat. You can't beat me if you're fat." So he always remembers this, and Victor Richards respects me a lot, because even as a teenager, I was already about conditioning. Conditioning was my trademark, as a bodybuilder. So that was like as a teenager. From there, I competed in the men's division already as a teenager, and I won, the Mr. New Jersey as a teenager, and then competed into the junior nationals, which is one step below the nationals, and I won that at 19, even though that's a show you could be any age. And then I went into my first nationals at 19, and I came in 5th place in the heavyweight division. And in that division was Rory Littermeyer, Matt Mendenhall, Mike Christian. So there was many, great bodybuilders. Oh, and Bob Paris. So these were the bodybuilders that competed against, and I came in top 5. So a gym owner, Ed Connors, who owned all the Gold's Gym franchises, said to me, if you move to California, you have a better chance to, win the nationals, but you should go in as a light heavyweight and not as a heavyweight, because you're not tall enough to go against the heavyweights. So I took his suggestion. I moved to California, and I lived in California. For my mission was to win the nationals. And back when I competed, you had to win the nationals or the they call it Mr. America. Now it's the nationals, and then go into the world championships. Back then was called the Mr. Universe. And once you win the Mr. Universe, then you get your pro card. So when I competed, only 5 pros in the world. That was the 5 weight class winners. Now they have many, many winners of pro cards that they give away. But that's another story we can talk about. But I moved to California, and I was there with a focus more than ever to turn pro. And while I was training in the Tarzana, which is the valley of California, Los Angeles. I met Lee Haney, and Lee Haney, who he came in 3rd place in the Mr. Olympia. So his mission was to win the Mr. Olympia. So he saw my, how hard I trained, and he asked me, "Would you like to be my training partner?" So I was an amateur, and for a chance to train with a pro, I said, "Sure, I'd love to train with you." So I started training with Lee Haney. Now, let me tell you, Lee Haney was a very meticulous trainer. He was very much into training properly. So I was lifting heavy weights, it was crazy. Lee Haney was all about strict form, negatives. And I started changing my training style, how Lee Haney was training, and it changed and transformed my physique. Because when I came in 5th in the nationals and 1st in the junior nationals, my legs were so big in my upper body, I needed more width in my shoulders, and I needed to look less blocky. So with Lee Haney, I trained less with my legs, more with my shoulders and my back and my arms, and I improved my body. So that year I trained totally with Lee. It was such a great experience. I won the nationals, and then I won Mr. Universe, and then Lee Haney won his first Mr. Olympia. So it was like I said, a great experience I'll never forget, because when I lived there, Lee Haney, I have to say, if it wasn't for Lee Haney, I wouldn't be pro. When I lived in California, I ran out of money. I had nowhere to live. And I lived with Lee Haney. He invited me to live at his house. And I lived in his house for 4 months before the show. So 2 guys dieting in a small apartment was a very hard thing to do.
Wow, that's quite a story. So 1984, you actually turned pro, winning World Amateur Champions light heavyweight.
Yes.
And 85, that was your pro debut. Tell me about your pro debut.
Well, you know, to get to be as a light heavyweight, I over dieted and I went down to about 188 pounds. When I competed the year before, I was 205 pounds. So I was naturally a bigger bodybuilder. So as soon as the show was over, I started eating. Now I didn't eat bad food. I was eating good food, but more food. And right away, because I fixed my symmetry to be bigger in my shoulders and not as blocky, as soon as I started eating, I started growing. So the glycogen in my muscles started filling out, and I just started getting bigger and bigger. So by the time I competed my first pro show, which was the Night of the Champions, now is the New York Pro, I went into that show at 215 pounds from 188. So I was a total different bodybuilder competing in that show. And then that show that year, I surprised everybody because the favorite to win was Albert Beckles, who was a seasoned pro. I came in from nowhere and I lost by a point against Albert Beckles that everyone said I should have won. And because it was in New York, everybody was booing because I'm from New Jersey, the New York area. So everyone was very upset. But coming second in the Night of the Champions made me a favorite for the Mr. Olympia, which happened in the fall. So then my first Mr. Olympia, which was then, back then it was in October or November, I competed then against my training partner. So, you know, I was saying to Lee Haney, I said, wow, I went from being your training partner now going against you head to head. And, you know, for me, Lee Haney was always the greatest bodybuilder because genetically he was superior to me because he had a smaller waist and he was taller. He had a bigger, you know, clavicle. His back was just a phenomenal back. But I always said to Lee, if you mess up a little bit, I'm going to beat you because I'm going to come in better shape. I always told him. So I was known for always being in the best, you know, shape, you know, where I came in always on point, being the most ripped bodybuilder. And I set a new standard in the sport. But so that first Mr. Olympia and my first try in the Olympia, I came in top 3 or 3rd place. So Lee Haney won his second Mr. Olympia. Albert Beckles beat me again. And then I came in 3rd. But from there, I skyrocketed to fame because I was very young. I was, you know, 21 years old coming in 3rd place in a Mr. Olympia. So it was unheard of to be so young and be so good. So from there, I was motivated to continue to compete. And into 1986, I went into the professional Mr. World. And it's funny because when I won when I won my class in the nationals, the overall winner was Mike Christian. Mike Christian was favored to be the best bodybuilder to beat Lee Haney. But when I competed, he only beat me in the nationals. He didn't beat me ever again. We kept going against each other, but because I became a different bodybuilder from what I was when I won the nationals.
Right. So you came in second, 86, 87, and 88, three years in a row.
Yes.
How did you feel about, you know, like your placing?
Well, when that whole time from, you know, coming in 3rd and then, you know, my life changed because then I became a professional bodybuilder. You know, my life, I started traveling the world, you know, seeing places, you know, going to Japan, going to Europe, going to South America, going to China. And, you know, I was a very young age and, you know, being that pro, I was still very driven to want to beat Lee Haney. So, you know, my first, second place in the Olympia, you know, I was very much like motivated to say, well, The only guy who beat me is one guy in the world. Everybody else is trying to beat me. So it was very stressful for the fact that, you know, I was competing, but I was trying to not have anyone else beat me. And only Lee Haney was the one. But there were so many great bodybuilders trying to beat me, like Lee Labrada, Mike Christian, you know, many bodybuilders, you know, Tom Platz, Robbie Robinson, you know, all these great bodybuilders. But I stood there, and what I set the standard in the sport, although Lee Haney was the winner, what I did for the sport is I changed the sport because I was the first bodybuilder to come with striated glutes. Nobody did that before me. So when I came in on stage and had something totally different, everybody had to follow and do the same thing. So I was very proud to say that, you know, I was one of the hardest training bodybuilders. Not too many people, well, you see, I've trained with you and I'm older, but when I was in my 20s, I would go through 2 training partners because I would burn them out because I would train so hard. But coming in, you asked me, how was it coming in second? You know, it was very stressful because I wanted to win so bad. And it was also stressful because I didn't want the other bodybuilders to beat me. You know, so it's this point where you're not the winner, but you have everybody else who wants to beat you. And it was, you know, stressful. And then, you know, in 1988, the first time I got beaten besides Lee Haney was Lee Labrada. And we went head to head at the European Grand Prix. And through that Grand Prix, you know, there were 7 shows, and that was 7 shows in 1 month, which is very hard to compete week after week after week. So I did everything in my power to peak in every show. All the other bodybuilders were going down, but me and Lee Labrada were staying like great. So the first time he beat me, he's a great, he came down in history as a great bodybuilder. You know, at that time I was upset because I felt it was political because I was never beaten. But, you know, talking now, you know, he's a great bodybuilder, and it was just a different look to my look. And we went head to head, and I would win, and then he would win, and I would win, and he would win. And we just kept going back and forth. And even he said, he goes, I can't believe your tenacity, because he goes, maybe I'm going to beat him now every show. And then he would lose. So he goes, I respected you very much because you were not someone that just was going to go down. You were a fighter. And in life, I've always been a fighter, no matter what. I don't give up in anything. And I believe to continuous to drive to succeed when it comes to bodybuilding or it comes to business. You know, the height of my career was 89 when I won the Arnold Classic. Unfortunately, I started having injuries. I tore my pec. I started having problems with my neck. And I started seeing my body change, not for the better, but started seeing the development I was losing, and I couldn't figure out why. And now I found out years later that I had problems with my discs. And what happens is the shrinking of the disc caused that the nerves don't go into the muscle properly. So I started losing, even though I was training hard, I was losing my look. So I took a couple years off, and I tried to make a comeback, and I came in 5th in in the Canadian Cup show. And when I came in those shows, I was going against Ronnie Coleman, Flex Wheeler, Mila Skarchev. So I was going against a lot of bodybuilders. So they were the winners, and I still came in top 5. And I was going to continue working, and I got injured very bad where I herniated the disc in my neck, and I paralyzed on my right side. And then I said, okay, I'm going to stop competing. And that's when I started Gaspari Nutrition. But, you know, that period of my life, it was a great period of my life to be, you know, that bodybuilder, so driven. I felt I was like a machine, you know, when I trained for those shows, because nothing mattered. All mattered was to win. And my life was eat, sleep, train, eat, sleep, train. And that was it.
Wow, that's amazing story. So you just mentioned when 89, you start seeing, you know, like a little bit declining, you know, because of injury. Then when did you decide, start, Gaspar Nutrition and retire from actually competing?
Well, I competed up to 92, and I went into, I stayed in top 10 in the Olympia, but I just, like I told you, I started seeing a difference where even if I trained hard, I saw my body it just wasn't getting in the shape that it was. So I said, maybe I'm burnt out and I need a couple years. So from 92 to 94, I took off. And then I came back in 95, 96, 97. I started competing again. And I tried to make a comeback. But at that period, that period of the late 90s was bodybuilders that were coming. For me, the height of bodybuilding when it came to the greats would be the late 90s, because then you had Ronnie Coleman, Flex Wheeler, Chris Cormier, Nazir El Somebody. You had so many bodybuilders that if you looked at each one of them, they were all great, Sean Ray. So I tried to, make a comeback, and I said I placed top 5 in some of the smaller shows. And then I said, I just don't feel my body is getting the way it was. And then what I figured out was I had problems with this injury. And in 1997, I was getting ready for the night of the champions. I was really in great shape. I was coming into the show at around 235, which was my biggest. And then I got the injury, and I was laying in bed for 2 months where I couldn't move because I was in pain. And as I was in bed, like I said, through adversity, you have to rise to the occasion. And that period, I stood in bed. I said, okay, I can't compete no more. What am I going to do for a living? And there in bed, I created the vision of Gaspari Nutrition. And I started the company from my bed.
Wow. I remember you told me the story, when you started Gaspari Nutrition. You started from, you created on your bed, and you actually started from your garage. Was that correct?
Yes.
So how did you start?
I started from the bedroom, and then I said, well, I want to start this business. I'm going to start from my home. I set up an office. I started finding out manufacturers to make the products. What I did was I was always into supplementation. I always believed supplementation gave me the edge. And I've always studied nutrition, as a bodybuilder. So for me, it was something I enjoyed doing to study the different nutrients, branch chains, creatine, proteins. So I studied all this, and I said, well, I want to make my own brand. So I just, like I said, I started out of my garage. And what happened was I ended up selling everything. So I had enough money to be able to start the brand. And through my parents' house, through my parents' garage, I started Gaspari Nutrition. So I started up with nothing, just some money. And then with that money, I started buying the products. And through those products, I started selling them. And when I started it, Hide, I was selling them to the local gyms. I would go. And here's another thing that I did. I stepped back to go forward. I sold my Porsche, 911 Porsche, for a van. It was my car. So a lot of people have too much ego to say, okay, they're going to go, have a van over having a nice car. But I said, you know what? This is my mission. I'm going to make this business grow. And I needed a van so I can put all the products in it and visit the gyms. And then I started going to the shows. And I started very small with a little booth, a 10 by 10 booth. And I started just selling, the products, from that booth. And at that time when I was doing it, a lot of people felt sorry for me because, oh, look at Rich Gaspari. He's a great champion. Now he's selling, from a little table. But I never felt like I went down. I always felt you always have to be humble. And I always tell people, even the greatest champions, always be humble, because you never know. Sometimes, even though you go to the top, you go down too. And you always want to be able to be humble with people. And I've never been that type of person to be really cocky. I'm very grateful of the abilities of what I've been able to do as a bodybuilder, but also my abilities as a businessman. And, my competition now is being, a businessman to continue growing. Although, I've traveled with you. I'm still a bodybuilder at heart. I love to train. I still eat like a bodybuilder. I do all the things like a bodybuilder. And that's because I live, sleep, and eat this lifestyle.
Right. So, a lot of people trust Gia's Pari Nutrition because who you are, who the creator of Gia's Pari Nutrition. I think a lot of companies just lose it, they, sold to our other owners and they, name's still the same, but, company itself is different. Gia's Pari Nutrition is always same.
Yeah, I mean, we went through partnerships that I didn't have a say, and I think that's why the company went down. But as you can see now that I'm in control of Gia's Pari, we're seeing the rise again of the company because I'm in charge of making this company go up. When I had partners that I wasn't in charge of the company and they made the decisions, we saw that the company was kind of floundering, So like you said, I don't do this only for money. I do it for the love of what I do. I do it for the passion. And I think any person that is in business has to do it more for the love, not just for the money. The money will come. And of course, I want to make money, but it's not all about that. It's about making, with Gia's Pari's making quality products. I'm very proud of every product I come out with because I really think about, what's going to be in that product and the quality of that product. So that's very important for me. And I think that conveys to the public, and that's why we're successful. And that's why I'm trusted, by so many people.
Right. So do you remember what's the very first product you made and what is the very first, you say moneymaker, the huge hit? What was the product?
Okay, so the very first product I made was a protein in a bottle. It was called Quick Meal. So all it was, it was 32 grams of protein in a bottle, and you add water and you shake it. So it was for convenience. And I actually did very well with those because I would sell them to all the local gyms. We started shipping them out. It was very light because there was no liquid in it. So that went pretty well. But what was my big product? I have to say, we started with selling products like M1T and Haladrol. When I sold that product, it just went crazy. And then the mainstream product that we still sell today is Super Pump. I mean, Super Pump was the first pre-workout. There was two pre-workouts. There was NO Explode and Super Pump. So I'm proud to say, I was the first generation of pre-workouts in all of the industry back then. Today, there's 1,000 pre-workouts out there. But I was very proud to say, I came up with many products that people didn't have. For example, you use our product called Glycofuse. That's a carbohydrate cluster dextrins that comes from Japan. They did not have this in the U.S. All they had in the U.S. was Vitargo, and was it what's the other one? Carbolin. And I looked at the research and I saw that, that cluster dextrins was a much better carbohydrate. With the research, they used it for the elite Japanese Olympic team swimmers. And I discovered that product and brought it. That was the first to bring it to the USA. Many other products we came out with, Novadex was our really, it was our testosterone booster, but it really, really worked. And we did so many clinicals and studies to show how it raised both free testosterone and total testosterone better than any product on the market. So we were always known as an innovative company, being very different from what other products are done. Protein powders, when we made Myofusion, I always believed when I drank protein, say 15 years ago, they tasted like dirty water, just like they weren't really something to enjoy. And it was always known like, oh, just drink it, you're a bodybuilder. You don't have to enjoy it. But I said, for this to grow, you have to make it taste really good so that even a child would want to drink it. So I really worked on the taste, like with Myofusion. What we did is we worked on not only the taste or the sweetness or the flavor, but the mouthfeel. The mouthfeel, when you have more of a milky taste, it makes the person enjoy the product. And that's something I did with Myofusion. And, you know, I had a lot of people tell me, you're never going to sell a lot of protein because all these other companies do more, do better. And we developed, Myofusion became one of the biggest proteins in the market. So anytime someone says I can't do something, I said I'm going to work harder to make it happen and show the, you know, the public that we can make something even better. So yeah, you know, from being a bodybuilder, I felt it really helped me. First, it keeps you disciplined. Second, it keeps you very, you always go to bodybuilding with a positive approach. You never enter a contest to lose. You enter a contest to win no matter what place you do in the end, but you do everything in your efforts to win. When you're in business, you have to do every bit of efforts to win. You don't go in half-ass. You go in full. You know, I don't believe in mediocrity. I believe in 100%. And so, you know, I always thank my experiences in being a pro bodybuilder. And what you mentioned is a lot of young people now are looking at YouTube at my old videos, and they know me as the supplement owner, but now they start seeing me as when I was competitive, and they said, wow, you were a great bodybuilder too. I said, well, that's what I did in my other life.
Right. Amazing. So you told us about your original products like Super Pump, Hard Roll. You know, we still have Super Pump, and it's still going great. And what about Size On? Because, you know, a lot of Japanese competitors, they love Size On. Tell us about that.
Well, Size On is a great product because I call Size On the all-in-one product, because this is an intra-workout formula that if you want to put on, and we say Size On, if you want to put on real solid mass, not fat, Size On helps because it's a creatine formula with complex carbohydrates, simple carbohydrates, hydrolyzed protein, and amino acids. So all the ingredients to help put your body in an anabolic state to make you grow lean muscle. And if people have a hard time eating, Size On is a great product. And you're right, Size On is a product with a formula that's still working. You know, 15 years later, you know, they tell me, you know, you need to change the formula. I said, I'm not going to change something that works. And everyone's tried to duplicate that product and still have not been able to make it as good as Size On. And even with very little marketing, Size On is one of those legacy products that sells itself.
Yeah. So tell us about your newest product, Detonate, the papa.
Okay, so I told you earlier that, you know, we had fat burners before, and the product we did have Detonate, but it was DETONATE, Detonate. So I wanted to do something different, so I used the play on words. So I used the initials DTN8. So when you look at it, it's Detonate. Right. So but I had to develop a fat burner for maybe 7 years, because of partners that, you know, my last partner, he had fat burners. He didn't want me to have a fat burner. So I wanted to develop something, not only a product that made you feel jittery, you know, like with just full of like caffeine and, you know, speed ingredients. I wanted something to be a true thermogenic. So in Detonate are true thermogenic ingredients, you know, grains of paradise, capsaicin. So ingredients to help heat your body up so that when you take it, you start to sweat and, you know, it burns calories. We also put in ingredients for a smooth energy. We did use natural caffeine from green tea. We used all different types of caffeines, but naturally. But then we added tyrosine for mental focus. We added huperzine for more mental focus, because when you train, you want to have a good focus. So you want the nootropics. But then another thing is whenever you take high amounts of stimulants, it affects the adrenal glands. And that's a bad thing. So if you burn out your adrenal glands, your body starts to hold fat, your body starts to, it becomes difficult to lose weight, you lose muscle. So we put in adrenal support in the Detonate. So far since we launched it, we're getting great feedback from people that are using it, saying the product is amazing and they're getting great results with the product. So I'm very proud that this is becoming a really big product for us. I did something different too. Most fat burners come in a bottle. This one's in a box, that you punch out. And the other product we have like that is PlasmaJet. So those two products are doing the best, overall. And PlasmaJet was an older product we brought back, and Detonate was an older product we brought back. But both of those products today are probably my best products in selling, overall as a hardcore product.
So Detonate, I just, start taking it too. And I was taking one capsule before training. Would you recommend go up to two capsule?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, it depends if you're stimulant sensitive. If you're very stimulant sensitive, take only one. But if some people are less stimulant sensitive, to take two. It's not going to make you feel like you're jumping out of your skin. I know, Hide, you're very sensitive to stimulants. Right. So the stimulant effect is not super strong. We also put in ingredients like theanine, which is an amino acid that helps relax you. So, people say, why would you put something that relax you in a fat burner to make you feel speedy? Because when you add the ingredient to relax you, it gives you more of a nice, smooth feeling. It doesn't give you like you're feeling, jittery. So I don't know how you felt on it, but you feel good on it, and people using it are getting, great effects. We just sold thousands of units to our friend in New Zealand, because he said the right now I gave him some product to try samples, and he said every single person said they love it. So I'm excited that this can be one of the bigger fat burners on the market.
Right. Yes. This is an amazing product. Like you said, I'm really sensitive to the stim, but I don't feel jittery or anything. I can take it, in ease. I don't feel afraid or something. So I really, yeah. So,
and you're getting good workout. You're getting good workouts. Yeah, good,
right,
good.
Right. You don't get this feeling, So you can.
Yeah. Anxiety.
That's amazing product. So, Rich, different topic. Do you remember when you met me first time, and how you think, as your athlete, how you think about me?
How I think about you. I'm very proud of you, Hide. I mean, you asked me, you don't remember, but I do remember. It was the first time I went to Milos's gym with Tom Hoops, and we went to the gym there, and I went to go see, what's his name, the bodybuilder? Silvio Samuels. So at that time, I think it was Silvio Samuels, but you were there, and also the bodybuilder from Australia. He passed away.
Good.
Yeah, and then also was the German bodybuilder. He won the Arnold Classic.
Oh, Dennis.
Yeah. Dennis was there, and I saw you guys. But it was funny. We went through a workout with Milos, and we did a giant set workout. So it was me, it was you, it was Milos, and we went through a whole circuit, with giant sets. And then I think halfway through, Tom gave up, and it was me, you, and Milos going through the workout. And then after I was done, Milos goes, "Oh, you did the whole workout. You didn't stop." I go, "No, I never stopped." But I did see in you. I said, "Wow, this he doesn't." The guy was killing you. Milos was killing you. Just kept coming back. I said, "You have a lot of heart." That you said you could take, training very, very hard. And I talked to Milos about you, and Milos said, "No, this guy is the hardest training guy, he's ever met, and very focused and driven." So I think when I met you there, it was a year or two later that then we decided to sign you, for Gaspari. And I said, since you've been with Gaspari, I told you last week, it's been amazing because, first, you're very loyal to the brand. And even though we went through many difficulties, you were still there, with us. And, as the brand progressed, I also can say you progressed. You were, if you go back, 10, 11 years ago, you were just bodybuilding. But right. Now you've changed. Now you're like me, you love bodybuilding, but you become more business. And, you were able to focus on other things and use that focus from bodybuilding in your business career. And now you have the gyms, the powerhouse gyms in Japan. You're running all the shows in Japan. You have your, web site and store. So like I always said, I'm very proud of what you've been able to do and being able to go from bodybuilder to now you represent the Asian market, because you're a pioneer when it comes to the, bodybuilding, because you're the first Asian bodybuilder to be in the Mr. Olympia, to be in the top 10 and to be a competitor, a contender. And now you've opened the doors. I think we discussed that you've given opportunity to so many Asian bodybuilders. Now you have Japanese, Korean, Vietnamese, Chinese, and all these bodybuilders. You have a lot of greats coming up that will be in, that will come into the Mr. Olympia.
Thank you very much. So you mentioned about Asia. I think fitness industry is coming kind of like a booming all over the world. And especially in Japan, last 5 years is so like big, getting bigger. I believe you saw it when you were in Japan last year. So,
oh yeah.
Tell me if you would think about, hiring another athlete from Japan.
I would definitely consider it, but they have to be as good as you. That's hard to find. But
right.
it's the Asian market is an emerging market. Now so many, and I'm not just seeing it in Japan. I'm seeing it. We talked Vietnam, Korea, China. I mean, right now bodybuilding in China is growing really, really big. So yeah, those markets are the emerging markets of the industry, because 10, 15 years ago, they didn't exist. And it's funny because the other markets, they kind of went down. European market or South American market, Middle East is still a big, there's a lot of bodybuilders in Middle East, but it seems now that there's more and more of bodybuilding growing in the Asian market. And it's, of course, I would definitely bring on another Asian. I contribute. I basically believe a lot of how we've grown in Japan is from your help as well, because you support the brand. We just got into China with our friend Adrian, so we're going to start selling there. I started selling in Vietnam with Tuan, and I sell in Korea. So we sell in a lot of the Asian markets, and it is growing. I see the growth of sales through those markets.
Amazing. Well, this is going to be the last question from my viewer. Do you think me can win Mr. Olympia this year?
We talked about that in the 212 class. It's pretty much an open class. You have the greatest opportunity. I think the biggest competitor for Hide is Hide. You have to go in, and this is my advice as your friend, as your boss, to go in that show. You train so hard, and I think you have to be careful of overtraining, because when you try to come in, you want to come in so great, you end up overtraining, and then that's where you mess up. So I believe if Hide can come in at his best, where he's full, he's ripped, I believe that you have a good chance of winning that show, 100%. But it has to be all in you, and you have to really be guided to make sure you don't make the mistake of feeling you have to train harder. Because sometimes I think, because your mentality of bodybuilding, I got to go harder. And sometimes it may be that it's easier and you can coast in a show. When I won the Arnold Classic, I coasted in. At the end, the last month, I didn't train hard because my body was in shape and I was able to fill out. That could happen to you. I mean, I know you're in good shape already. So when you ask me that question, I say 100%, you can win the show. It's going to be, like I said, the biggest competitor is you.
Thank you, man. I'll take that out for sure. So Rich, it's been great interview. So last thing, would you, we just talked about this great fat burner detonate. So would you give away detonate to Japanese viewer?
Yes. What I want to do is we're going to give away 3 boxes to Japanese viewers who buy from the Body Cafe. So get your chance of getting, your detonate from Body Cafe. Compliments of myself.
Thank you very much. We will be appreciated. So thank you for your time, Rich. It's been honor, being working for you for last. Actually, this is my 11 years.
11 years. Wow.
And I would, like you said about Lee, I would say without you, I wouldn't be here today. As a professional.
Well, thank you. You are, like I always tell people, you work very hard, and even though you've won the Arnold Classic, you've been in Olympia, you stay humble, and you work. You're always a hard-working guy, and staying like this is the best way to be. So I know the future for you is always success.
Thank you very much, Rich. So this is it today, but we're gonna, I guess we will see you in December in Las Vegas.
Yes, Las Vegas, December. I'll be cheering you on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Rich. Thank you very much for your time.
Yes, thank you.